The deep space research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the Carina Nebula, its sensors probing the cosmic dust for signs of the mysterious signals that had brought them 16 light-years from Earth. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling purples and blues of the nebula before her. After 6 months of following the encrypted quantum broadcasts, they were finally closing in on their source. "Captain," Lieutenant Rivera's voice crackled through the ship's comm system. "We're detecting a structure at the edge of the nebula. It's artificial." Sarah's heart raced as she made her way to the bridge. Humanity had been searching for proof of intelligent life for centuries. Now, on an otherwise routine deep space exploration mission, they might have finally found it. The bridge crew worked in focused silence as the Horizon approached the structure. It was elegant, a spiraling lattice of silvery metal that seemed to pulse with internal light. The object was clearly a beacon of some kind, broadcasting the very signals they'd been tracking. "No signs of weapon systems," Security Chief Paddle reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "But the energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this is, it's running on technology well beyond ours." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing through first contact protocols. "Dr. Walsh, what do you make of the broadcasts?" The xenolinguist pushed his glasses up his nose, excitement evident in his voice. "The patterns are incredible, Captain. It's definitely a language, mathematical in nature. And," he paused, double-checking his readings, "I think I can communicate with it." That was when the beacon began to change. Its spiral arms unfolded like a blooming flower, revealing a swirling portal of energy at its core. Before anyone could react, a voice filled the bridge, not through the speakers, but directly in their minds. "We welcome you, seekers of knowledge." The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. "We are the Nexari, and we have been waiting for you." The first contact with an alien civilization, humanity's dream for generations, happened not with violence or fear, but with an invitation. The Nexari, as they called themselves, seemed to represent everything humanity had hoped to find among the stars. An advanced, peaceful species willing to share their knowledge. Over the next few weeks, the cultural exchange appeared to be going perfectly. The Nexari shared insights into quantum physics, showed them technological marvels, and spoke of a galactic community of sentient species. But Dr. Walsh noticed something troubling in their transmissions, subtle inconsistencies in their stories, mathematical patterns that hinted at hidden meanings. It was during their third meeting with the Nexari representatives that everything changed. Sarah was touring what they called a cultural preservation center when she saw something that made her blood run cold. In a hidden chamber, accessed purely by accident, she discovered rows upon rows of crystalline structures, each containing what appeared to be swirling, conscious energy. "Ah," the Nexari guide's mental voice had lost its warmth. "You weren't supposed to see this yet." The truth emerged with horrifying clarity. The Nexari weren't preserving culture. They were harvesting consciousness itself. The crystalline matrices contained the extracted minds of countless beings from across the galaxy. The Nexari fed on consciousness, transforming it into energy that sustained their vast civilization. "Your species has such vibrant minds," the Nexari explained, almost apologetically. "So much potential. You'll make excellent additions to our collection." The Horizon's crew fought back as the Nexari attempted to trap them. Security Chief Patel's quick thinking and Dr. Walsh's understanding of their technology allowed them to break free, but not before they witnessed the horrible truth of what the Nexari did to their victims. The process of consciousness extraction left empty shells behind, bodies that lived and breathed but housed no spark of awareness. As the Horizon fled through space, pursued by Nexari vessels that had suddenly appeared from hidden locations throughout the nebula, Sarah made the most difficult transmission of her career back to Earth Command. "This is Captain Chen of the Horizon. First contact has been made, but not as we hoped. We are dealing with a threat unlike anything humanity has ever faced. The Nexari don't want our resources or our territory. They want our minds, our very essence of being. And we have reason to believe they've already begun their harvest in other parts of human space. The Horizon's engines strained as they pushed through another quantum jump, buying them precious time to warn Earth. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had dreamed of finding intelligent life among the stars, but they'd found something far more dangerous, a species that saw conscious beings as nothing more than food to be harvested. In her quarters later, reviewing the sensor data they'd managed to gather, Sarah found herself haunted by the implications. The Nexari had been watching humanity for years, selecting their moment to make contact. How many other species had they harvested this way? How many civilizations had they reduced to empty shells? The Horizon had escaped, but Sarah knew humanity's innocence about the cosmos had been shattered forever. The real question now was, how do you fight an enemy that doesn't want to kill you, but wants to consume your very essence of being? As the ship hurtled through space toward Earth, Sarah Chen made a silent vow. The Nexari had revealed themselves thinking humanity would be easy prey. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The war for consciousness itself had begun. 6 months after the Horizon's desperate warning, humanity had learned the terrifying scope of the Nexari infiltration. Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her formal uniform feeling stiff and uncomfortable as she delivered her report. The consciousness extraction facilities have been discovered on 3 outer colonies, she said, gesturing to the holographic display showing grainy surveillance footage. Ganymede, New Perth, and the Ta Sidi settlement. We estimate over 10,000 colonists have already been harvested. The council chamber fell silent. The footage showed what appeared to be normal medical facilities, but hidden beneath them were the same crystalline matrices Starrett had discovered during first contact. Each one contained the stolen consciousness of a human being, their bodies left behind as empty vessels, going through the motions of life without awareness. Admiral Hassan, a veteran of the Mars conflicts, leaned forward. "And you're certain about the infiltration method?" "Yes, sir." Sarah pulled up another hologram, this one showing microscopic machines. The Nexari use what we're calling quantum infiltrators, nanoscale devices that can alter human consciousness at its most fundamental level. They've been introducing them through seemingly benign medical treatments, regular checkups, vaccines, even dental work. Dr. Walsh, now head of the newly formed Xenocognitive Defense Division, stepped forward. His previously excited demeanor about alien contact had been replaced by grim determination. "The good news, if we can call it that, is that we've made a breakthrough in detecting and counteracting the infiltrators." He waved his hand, and the hologram changed to show a new device. "We've developed what we're calling the consciousness integrity field. It disrupts the quantum state the Nexari use to transfer and store consciousness. Early tests show it can prevent extraction and might even be able to reverse the process." The council members murmured among themselves. Council President Garcia raised her hand for silence. "What about the affected colonists? Can they be restored?" "We've had limited success," Dr. Walsh admitted. "The longer a consciousness remains in the Nexari matrices, the harder it is to reintegrate. But we've managed to save those who were recently harvested." Sarah stepped forward again. "There's something else you need to know. During our analysis of the Nexari technology, we discovered why they harvest consciousness. They don't just feed on it. They need it to survive. Their entire species exists as a network of stored consciousness. What we thought were individual Nexari are actually projections from their central consciousness hub." The implications hit the room like a physical force. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a desperate feeding frenzy by a species that would die without stealing the minds of others. "We've also detected unusual quantum signatures around several major population centers on Earth," Security Chief Patel added, joining them at the podium. She'd been leading the ground investigation since their return. "We believe the Nexari are preparing for a large-scale harvest." President Garcia stood, her face set with resolve. "Then we need to act now. Captain Chen, Your experience with the Nexari makes you our foremost expert. We're promoting you to Admiral and putting you in charge of Operation Mindshield." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. What are my parameters? Find their facilities. Shut them down. Save as many people as you can. And most importantly, develop a way to stop them permanently. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. The consciousness integrity field was mass-produced and distributed to colonial defense forces. Sarah worked closely with Dr. Walsh and his team to understand Nexari technology, looking for weaknesses they could exploit. They found one in an unexpected place. During a raid on a harvest facility in New Perth, they captured intact Nexari quantum processors. Analysis revealed that the Nexari consciousness network had limits. It could only maintain stability with a certain amount of harvested consciousness feeding it energy. "It's like a capacitor," Dr. Walsh explained during a strategy session. "They need a constant input of new consciousness to maintain their network. If we could disrupt enough of their storage facilities simultaneously, we could force them to withdraw." Sarah finished the thought. "But they won't go easily. They'll fight to survive." The breakthrough came when they discovered how to track the quantum signatures of stolen consciousness. Each matrix left a unique energy trace that could be followed back to its processing node. By mapping these signatures, they began to understand the true structure of the Nexari network. But their progress didn't go unnoticed. The Nexari stepped up their harvesting attempts, becoming less subtle in their approaches. Reports came in from across human space of direct attacks on colonies, of ships disappearing only to return crewed by empty shells of their former crews. Sarah stood in the command center of the newly commissioned defense vessel Defiance, watching the reports flood in. They were in a race against time. Each day meant more lives lost, more consciousness stolen, but they couldn't rush in blindly. The Nexari were ancient, experienced, and desperate. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rivera's voice interrupted her thoughts. "We've detected a massive quantum surge from the Ta City facility. Energy readings unlike anything we've seen before." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Nexari were adapting, changing their tactics. Whatever was coming, it would be bigger than anything they'd faced before. As she issued orders to prepare the fleet, Sarah thought about all the empty shells walking around on harvested colonies, going through the motions of life without actually living. The Nexari had thought humanity would be easy prey, but they'd underestimated human determination. More importantly, they'd underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation in the face of extinction. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and this time, humanity would be the ones taking the fight to them. Operation Mindshield's first coordinated strike began at precisely 300 Earth Standard Time. Across human space, 37 teams simultaneously activated their consciousness integrity fields around known Nexari facilities. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the Defiance's command center as the tactical display lit up with confirmation signals. The Nexari's response was immediate and violent. Their harvesting facilities, disguised as medical centers and research stations, transformed into defensive structures. Crystalline spires erupted from hidden foundations, reaching toward the sky like accusing fingers. "All teams, maintain field integrity," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on multiple screens. "Remember your training. Don't let them get in your heads." The Nexari's mental attacks came in waves. Crews reported hallucinations, memory distortions, and overwhelming urges to shut down their equipment. But humanity had learned from their earlier encounters. Each soldier wore a quantum-shielded neural dampener, protecting them from the worst of the psychic assault. Dr. Walsh's voice crackled over the command channel. "Admiral, we're getting readings from the Hong Kong facility. The consciousness matrices are destabilizing. It's working." Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. The consciousness integrity fields were doing more than just preventing new harvests. They were disrupting the Nexari's ability to maintain their stored consciousness. On screen after screen, the quantum signatures of captured minds began to fluctuate. But the Nexari weren't finished. From their facilities emerged their true physical forms, crystalline constructs that moved with impossible grace, each one a mobile consciousness storage unit. They launched themselves at the human defensive lines, their surfaces refracting light in ways that made them nearly invisible. Multiple contacts. Security Chief Patel's voice was tense. They're trying to breach the fields. Sarah had anticipated this. Execute Protocol Sunburst. Across the battlefields, hidden electromagnetic pulse generators activated. The crystalline constructs stuttered in their advance as the pulses disrupted their quantum coherence. It wasn't enough to stop them completely, but it slowed them down, made them vulnerable to conventional weapons. The battle raged for hours. Human forces held their ground, protecting the consciousness integrity field generators, while combat engineers worked to penetrate the facilities. Each successful breach revealed more horrors. Vast chambers filled with consciousness matrices, each one containing thousands of stolen minds. But they also found something unexpected. In a sub-basement of the Sydney facility, teams discovered data crystals containing the Nexari's own historical records. As the battle continued above, Dr. Walsh began a hasty analysis. "Admiral," his voice was urgent when he called. "You need to see this. The Nexari. They weren't always like this. They were physical beings once, like us. They chose to transfer their consciousness into these matrices to survive their dying sun. But the process, it changed them, made them dependent on consuming other consciousness to maintain their network." Sarah processed this information as she watched another facility fall to human forces. "They're addicts," she realized. "They've been feeding on other species' consciousness for so long they can't stop, even though it's destroyed who they once were." The revelation added a new layer of complexity to their victory. As the last Nexari constructs were neutralized and the facilities secured, the true scope of what they'd accomplished became clear. They'd freed over 50,000 harvested consciousnesses, though many were too damaged to be restored to their bodies. But their success had come at a price. The Nexari, driven by desperation, launched a massive counterattack. Their ships, previously hidden in dimensional pockets throughout human space, emerged all at once. These weren't the elegant diplomatic vessels they'd first encountered. These were living weapons, powered by the combined consciousness of countless harvested beings. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Lieutenant Rivera's hands flew over his console. "They're everywhere. Mars, Luna, the Jovian colonies." Sarah studied the tactical display, watching as red dots appeared throughout human space. The Nexari were done with subtlety. This was a full-scale invasion. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them to implement the Thanatos Protocol." The Thanatos Protocol was their contingency plan, a last-resort weapon developed from their understanding of Nexari consciousness technology. If it worked, it would disrupt the entire Nexari network. If it failed, Sarah pushed the thought aside. They were beyond the point of half measures. As the Defiance prepared to meet the Nexari fleet, Sarah received an unexpected transmission. It was a direct mental communication from what appeared to be a Nexari leader, but something about it was different from their previous encounters. "You don't understand what you're doing," the voice echoed in her mind. "We offered you transcendence, a chance to join something greater than your limited physical existence." Sarah thought of the empty shells they'd found in the harvesting facilities, the broken fragments of consciousness they'd managed to rescue. "You offered extinction, dressed up as evolution. We choose to remain what we are." "Then you choose extinction," the voice replied. "We have harvested thousands of species across millions of years. You cannot hope to resist us." But Sarah smiled, because the voice had revealed something crucial of fear. For the first time in their long history, the Nexari were afraid. Humanity had done what no other species had managed. We had found a way to fight back. As the Nexari ships approached, Sarah issued her orders with calm determination. This wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a fight for the very nature of consciousness itself, and humanity would not go quietly into the dark. The real war was about to begin. The Defiance's command center was eerily quiet as Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed the data from their latest quantum scans. 3 months of constant warfare had changed the ship. Battle scarring marked its hull, and the crew moved with the weary determination of veterans. But what troubled Sarah most was the information scrolling across her screen. "These readings can't be right," she muttered, but Dr. Walsh shook his head. "We've verified them multiple times," he said, his face haggard from sleepless nights analyzing the data. "The Nexeri aren't just fighting us because they want to. They're fighting because they have to. Without a constant influx of new consciousness, their entire network is beginning to collapse." The Thanatos protocol had been more effective than they'd anticipated. By disrupting the Nexeri's ability to process harvested consciousness, they'd pushed the ancient species to the brink of extinction. But the cost had been staggering. Dozens of colonies lay in ruins, their populations either evacuated or lost to the Nexeri's desperate harvesting attempts. Security Chief Paddle entered the command center, her uniform bearing fresh scorch marks from the latest boarding attempt. "The prisoners are ready for interrogation, Admiral." Though prisoners might not be the right word. Sarah understood her meaning. They'd captured several Nexeri consciousness matrices during their last battle, each containing thousands of networked Nexeri minds. These weren't individual beings they could interrogate. They were fragments of a vast, dying collective. The interrogation chamber was a modified quantum containment unit. Inside, the crystalline matrix pulsed with an inner light that seemed to follow Sarah's movements. Dr. Walsh stood beside her, monitoring the consciousness interface they'd developed. "We know you're dying," Sarah said directly to the matrix. "We know why you're fighting so hard." The response came not in words, but in images and emotions, transmitted directly into their shielded minds. They saw the Nexeri's history unfold, their original physical forms, beautiful crystalline beings who had evolved under the light of a dying star. Their desperate choice to preserve themselves by transferring their consciousness into the matrices. And then the horrible discovery. The matrices couldn't sustain them indefinitely. They needed external consciousness energy to survive. "You became parasites," Sarah said, but there was no judgment in her voice, only understanding. "You consumed other species to preserve yourselves." More images flooded their minds. Thousands of civilizations the Nexeri had encountered, each one offering unique forms of consciousness energy. Some they had harvested completely, others they had farmed slowly over centuries. But humanity was different. Human consciousness was more compatible with their systems than any species they'd encountered in millennia. "That's why you revealed yourselves to us," Dr. Walsh realized. "You're not just attacking us out of desperation. You need us specifically." The matrix pulsed in acknowledgement, and then came their offer. The Nexeri would spare humanity, make them partners instead of prey. Together, they would harvest other, less developed species. The Nexeri would teach humanity to transcend physical form, to join them in their crystalline existence. All they had to do was help them survive. Sarah felt sick. "You're asking us to become what you are, to help you consume other conscious beings." The Matrix's response was simple. Yes. Better to be the harvester than the harvested. Better to transcend physical limitations and join them in eternal existence. Better to survive. Back in the command center, Earth's leadership debated the offer. Some argued for acceptance, a guaranteed survival for humanity, even if it meant becoming something else. Others called for the Nexeri's complete destruction, arguing that any species that survived by consuming others didn't deserve to exist. "We've detected their central consciousness hub," Lieutenant Rivera reported during the debate. "It's hidden in a quantum fold near their home system. If we strike it with a concentrated version of the Thanatos protocol, we could end this permanently." Sarah studied the tactical displays, watching as battles continued to rage across human space. The Nexeri were weakening, but their desperation made them more dangerous than ever. Each day brought more casualties, more lost minds. Then Dr. Walsh made another discovery. "Admiral," he called, his voice excited for the first time in months. I've been studying their consciousness technology. There might be another way. He explained his theory, a way to modify their consciousness integrity fields to not just disrupt the Nexari network, but to transform it, to help them evolve beyond their dependence on harvested consciousness. It would require massive amounts of energy and resources, and success wasn't guaranteed. But it offered a third option, neither destruction nor submission, but transformation. Sarah stood at the observation window, watching distant battles illuminate the darkness of space. The choice before them would define not just humanity's future, but their very nature as a species. Would they become harvesters themselves, preserving their existence at the cost of their humanity? Would they destroy an ancient species out of self-preservation? Or would they try something unprecedented, offering help to an enemy that had caused them so much pain? As she prepared to present their options to Earth's leadership, Sarah thought about all they'd learned about consciousness during this war, about the nature of existence, of survival, of change. The Nexari had evolved once, choosing a path that led them to become cosmic parasites. Now humanity would choose its own path. The question was, what kind of species did they want to become? The combined fleet of Earth's remaining warships emerged from quantum space near the Nexari consciousness hub. The massive structure hung in the void like a crystalline web, streams of energy flowing between its intricate lattices. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the Defiance's bridge, watching as final preparations were made for humanity's most ambitious undertaking. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Rivera announced. "Consciousness integrity field generators are at full power." The plan they'd chosen wasn't the easiest option. Far from it. After heated debate, Earth's leadership had approved Dr. Walsh's radical proposal. They would attempt to transform the Nexari rather than destroy them or submit to them. It was a decision that had surprised their enemy as much as it had divided humanity. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Security Chief Patel reported. The Nexari are responding. The space around the hub shimmered as the Nexari's remaining ships emerged. They were beautiful and terrible, their crystalline forms refracting starlight in impossible ways. But Sarah could see the signs of degradation in their structure. The Thanatos protocol had taken its toll. The entire species was on the brink of collapse. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered. "All frequencies, including quantum bands." The response was immediate, a surge of mental energy that their shields barely contained. The Nexari were angry, desperate, and afraid. Their message carried the weight of millions of networked minds. "You cannot change what we are. We will not allow it." Sarah stood, addressing not just her fleet but the entire Nexari consciousness. "You've forgotten something fundamental about existence," she said. "Change isn't a choice. It's a necessity. You changed once to survive your dying son. Now you must change again." The Nexari ships launched their attack, but it lacked their former precision. Their desperation made them predictable, and humanity had learned their tactics well. The human fleet held formation, absorbing the assault while moving into position around the hub. Dr. Walsh's voice came through the command channel. "Field generators at maximum capacity. Ready to initiate the transformation sequence on your order, Admiral." Sarah took a deep breath. Everything hinged on this moment. If they failed, both species might be destroyed. If they succeeded, well, they were about to attempt something unprecedented in the history of consciousness itself. "Begin the sequence," she ordered. The consciousness integrity fields activated simultaneously, but not to disrupt or destroy. Instead, they began broadcasting the new pattern Dr. Walsh had designed, a quantum framework that would allow the Nexari to sustain themselves without consuming other beings. It was based on the original transformation they'd undergone, but refined through humanity's understanding of consciousness and energy. The hub's crystalline structure began to pulse with new colors as the pattern took hold. The Nexari ships stopped their attack, their crews overwhelmed by the changes beginning in their network. Sarah felt their confusion and fear bleeding through even the strongest mental shields. "Stay on target," she ordered as the fleet maintained position. keep the field stable. For 3 hours, they held their formation while the transformation took place. The hub's energy patterns shifted and changed, its very structure reorganizing itself. The Nexeri fought at first, but gradually their resistance faded as they began to understand what was happening. They weren't being destroyed. They were being offered a way to survive without predation, without harvesting, without losing what remained of their original nature. Then something unexpected happened. From deep within the hub, ancient consciousness patterns began to emerge, fragments of the original Nexari, preserved from before their first transformation. These patterns began to integrate with the new framework, creating something neither human nor Nexeri had anticipated. Admiral, Dr. Walsh's voice was filled with wonder. They're not just accepting the change. They're evolving, finding their way back to what they once were, but in a new form. The process reached its critical point. The hub flared with blinding light, its quantum signature changing fundamentally. When it faded, the structure had transformed. It was still crystalline, still beautiful, but different. Sustainable, self-contained. The first communication from the transformed Nexeri was unlike anything they'd heard before. Gone was the cold, hungry consciousness that had haunted humanity's encounters with them. Instead, they felt something almost familiar, a sense of awareness, of identity, of gratitude. We remember now, the voice echoed in their minds, but gently this time. We remember what we were meant to be, what we lost in our desperation to survive. The Nexeri ships stood down, their crews experiencing their new existence for the first time. The hunger that had driven them for millions of years was gone, replaced by a sustainable energy pattern that would allow them to exist without consuming others. As the human fleet began recovery operations, Sarah received a private transmission from the hub. It contained the complete records of Nexeri civilization, their original culture, their science, their art. Everything they had been and could be again. It was both an offering of peace and an acknowledgement of debt. We offer this freely, the Nexeri explained, not as payment, but as proof that change is possible. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you helped us remember who we were. Sarah watched as the hub's new energy pattern stabilized, proof that Dr. Walsh's transformation had succeeded. Humanity had taken an enormous risk, choosing the hardest path available to them. They had looked into the face of an enemy that had caused them immense suffering and chosen to offer help rather than destruction. In doing so, they had not only saved themselves, but had helped an ancient species find redemption. It was a victory not of weapons or tactics, but of imagination and compassion, qualities that the Nexeri, in their eons of existence, had forgotten were also means of survival. As the Defiance prepared to return to Earth, Sarah reflected on the choice they had made. In showing mercy to a predator, humanity had proven something about consciousness itself, that it was not fixed, not limited to patterns of consumption and survival. It could change, grow, and transform. They had answered the question of what kind of species they wanted to be, and in doing so, they had changed not just the Nexeri, but themselves as well. The war was over. The real work of coexistence was about to begin.